what are some of the most common things people get wrong when they think about trauma in relation to something like this? Because we focus on the physical elements of it, don't we?
We sure do. And I think some of the things that are out there is that people keep it all in and it's just affecting them. But in my situation, and I know others haven't heard lovely stories today, the ripple effect of how that trauma is transferred to those closest to us, whether we realise it or not, and the impact of it on them is often stronger. I think the guilt for me was having them go through it, having to tell my mum, having to tell my husband, having to tell my little boy, and seeing their upset was much harder than anything that I had to deal with physically. So for me, that was one of the biggest things.
It's something that came through so powerfully when I was just sat here, I've just done literally nearly an hour with Martin's family, his wife and his son, and to hear it from that different lens and that different perspective, the son seeing the death of his father's identity as well as his physical ability, his ability to provide, his ability, you as a mother, your ability to care for someone, to be the rod, to be the compass, to be the rock. Yeah. Having those things ripped away from you, and that person, your child seeing you change. Yeah. Yeah. That's so surreal. When I was just listening to the two of you outside, I was like, this is surreal, because you both had. I always say it's like they're not exactly the same, but they rhyme. Do you know what I mean? It's so different to hear people's stories in the way that they've gone through this sort of thing. For people, just for a bit of context, Michelle, what was your diagnosis?
So I had stage 3 breast cancer, and it was HER2 positive, which is human something growth factor. It's a protein. I should know the name of it at this stage. It's just gone from my mind right now. It's not the usual type of breast cancer. Usually people are hormone positive, estrogen positive. Mine was very weakly estrogen positive, and it was basically the protein that normally divides our cells. It was an overexpression of that. And because it was diagnosed during pregnancy, it amplified the growth. So while I felt literally a little lump underneath my arm, it was actually a 15 centimetre tumour that went right into my chest wall. And I had no idea.
15 centimetres?
15 centimetres.
Wow.
Yeah.
So give us a bit of context. So this was during your pregnancy. How old would you have been?
I was 33.
33.
Second pregnancy. First one, I breastfed the first baba. Apparently breastfeeding is a protective factor for breast cancer. So if you've breastfed a baby, you're much less likely to get breast cancer. Okay. Which I thought, great. So that was one of the things that kind of smacked me as well, was that I couldn't give the second baby what I gave the first baby. So the guilt of that alone.
From day one, you feel like you're failing as a mum.
Absolutely. But then I'm kind of scooting around the question that you asked initially, but one of the things that really struck me and still stays with me is that my body was doing something super destructive, but something super perfect at the same time. And when he was born, all I kept saying was like, has he got 10 fingers? Has he got 10 toes? Is he okay? I could not believe that he was perfect. And yet my body was growing this 15 centimetre disgusting thing at the same time.
Did you have any concern that you would pass the cancer on? I don't know if that's a stupid thing to ask.
No, at that point, no.
I think I see it as a type of infection, and I feel like that...
No, it's a separate body living independently. It's almost like a second pregnancy.
Exactly.
If you will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't worried about it at that time, but since then, since I've kind of looked into it a little bit more, I am still thinking about how that might affect. Now I've got two boys. If they were girls, they'd be slightly higher risk, but I still do have to watch out for that. And if they have girl children, then obviously there might be some sort of genetic piece there that we haven't just discovered yet.
One thing that I found strange and slightly concerning and surprising was you two were talking about the manner in which you were informed of your cancers, the way in which it was described to you. And this isn't a finger poke at the NHS or anything like that, but I suppose in retrospect, it might be useful for people to understand as well. When you were initially told information, when you were given that fatal news, the C-bomb that everyone's fearing, how was it delivered? Reflecting back on it now, what advice would you have for somebody, I suppose, and take us into that exact moment? Because I know you went by yourself, didn't you?
I did. So
you don't think you even told your wife?
Nope.
I remember,
I kept it as much as I could close to my chest. So for a little while, I was pissing blood, ultimately. And I was running a lot, so I just put it down to the basics. And Dr. Google also said that it was friction from distance running. So I never thought that I was going to be, receive a diagnosis. I never did. I went to the hospital thinking it was a very quick process. I saw the GP in the morning, Dr. Mabratu, I love her. She then, within 2 minutes, was on the phone saying, I've got a guy, he's coming to see you this afternoon. You need to see him at 1 o'clock. So within 2 hours, I was from the GP to the hospital, 7 miles away. I was then seen, they did the ancillary stuff first, so the kidney checks, the ultrasoundy, the less invasive stuff. And I was still thinking, you know what, it's going to be a UTI or it's going to be a kidney stone or something. Then I went into the ante-room, and I'll always remember a smally girl, still makes me sad. She would have been 8 or 9, and it seems she's probably just had a cystoscopy, because it hurts anyway. And obviously she just had a camera where it should never go in an 8-year-old little girl. So she was in absolute, and I remember thinking, if I could have taken that from her almost. So, sorry. Going into the room was interesting, yeah, sure. So I got changed, obviously, into a gown, and then laid on the table, and it was really cool, actually. The nurses were quite funny, communicative, and brave, to be fair, because it's a shit butty they give people every day,
Their level of candour must be...
oh, Christ.
Top level must be pro-level gurus.
Oh, we're on the piss. So, and obviously it was a cold day, and I did mention, actually, it's a little bit colder, so I tried to slap it around a bit before I get some blood in it. So I laid on the table, and she was doing what she was doing, and it was a good chat. How many kids you got? Usual, what do you do for a living? Well, must be exciting, all that stuff. And then this is going to tickle a little bit. And I'll always remember the NHS should have, so the stuff they use in Stilagel goes down the urethra, and it's meant to be left for about 5 minutes. Yeah. It gives you a numbing effect. Yeah. The NHS being busy, they give it about 5 seconds. So as a lubricant, not a numbing.
There's a queue outside, come on.
So she got this thing, and off she went, and I'm no. Of course, your muscles are contracting because you don't want this thing coming in, and you need to relax, and they're telling you to relax and cough and all these things. And Jesus Christ. Anyway, so still fairly humorous that I've got a small penis. No, I'm joking. But, going through my urethra, and then all of a sudden it just stopped, and then she said, "You need to look at the screen. Do you want to?" And I'm like, "Just get this thing out of me." And she says, "No, you must look at the screen." So I looked at the screen, and then this thing, as you said, this disgusting thing was there with its own blood supply, almost beating.
Yours was like floating around, wasn't it? Because it was in.
So it was attached to the bladder.
Attached to the bladder, wasn't it?
It was actually like coral.
Yeah, he said,
so
little waving.
Corally thing next to my left ureter, so next to my left kidney. And I'll always remember then the darkness came into the room pretty much. And then, so I wasn't told, I saw. So she didn't say, "You have cancer." She said, "Look at the screen. That will be a malignant tumour." Oh, bollocks. So then she pulled this thing out, and it's kind of, when it goes in, you want to walk backwards, and when it's pulling out, you want to walk with it because you don't want it to come out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she pulled that out, and then, as I said, I walked from there into the ante-room, into the other room, and the numbness. The numbness. I wasn't physically told because there were no results other than a physical screen. And then, as I said, I fainted, which was quite comical, obviously, and then walked back and go, shit. And then 7 stitches, which was quite amusing. But that moment in time was just, it just changed our lives forever. I will never be the person I was. I'm not humorous, and I don't have that emotion of cuddling people. I'm lost still, and it's 12 years down the line. So I'll never.
Do you ever get angry about it?
Absolutely, bitterly angry.
It's annoying, isn't it? Because I'm sitting here as though I'm relating to the two of you. I'm not, and I can't. But when I do hear these stories, and I was just speaking with Martin's family as well, my overwhelming feeling is one of anger, of the ridiculous shit we worry about half the time. Champagne problems.
Yeah.
And I take to us to because. So you were going through the pregnancy,
yes,
when you started to feel.
Yeah. So initially, I felt a lump, and
in your breast, in the top of
just
your or in your arm, sorry,
underneath my arm.
So
kind
lymph
of on
gland
the corner of where the breast tissue meets the kind of underneath the arm, the axilla. Right. It was still in breast tissue, but like it was hard to kind of describe.
for any, I know there's mannequins and demonstration units that people can use. If I had to force you to describe it, what did it feel like that was different from your normal tissue?
So I rolled over. I was in bed. I rolled over and I kind of went, oh, and I got an uncomfortable feeling. And then I went, oh, what's that? And that's how I felt it. So it was kind of really hard. It moved. And I kind of initially thought, maybe I should get that checked out. But didn't go straight away. Mentioned it to the GP. The GP thought it was kind of because I was pregnant, thought it was hormonal.
How far through your pregnancy were you?
34 weeks. So I was in one way lucky that it was late and the baby could be born. And it often goes through my mind if there would be different decisions that would have had to be made if it was earlier.
It's like, in a very diluted sense, when we do the whole, do you defib a pregnant woman? And we go, yeah, if mummy dies, baby dies.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not kill baby, but if baby dies, okay.
Yeah.
But we've got to save mummy.
Yeah.
And if this would have happened earlier on, and you'd be like,
Exactly.
if you both survive, great. If not, we'd prefer you.
Exactly.
So, but like for you, your primate would be like, no, save baby.
Absolutely.
And you'd be like, oh, no, we can't. It's not. It doesn't work. It's like the impossible problem, isn't it? That is just horrific.
The chaos that you must have had.
Well, I didn't really have any decisions because it was taken out of my hands. Like there was nothing I could do to stop it. And I had a wonderful doctor in the maternity hospital that I went to, and I said to her, I went to the GP about this. I went in for a routine checkup with her for the baby, and I said, I went to the GP about this, not really happy with the response I got. Will you have a look? And she said to me,
what was the response? Sorry? So they attributed it to the pregnancy?
Yeah.
It's a weird one.
Yeah.
Or like blocked gland for
hormonal changes, lumpy breasts. That's what he said. And, no.
I know pregnant women are weird, but we can't write everything off as your hands swell, your boobs swell.
But in fairness to him, I had no family history. I was young. I was fit. I was healthy. I wasn't a smoker ever.
By the book.
I was, like typical, not your typical breast cancer patient. It never even came into his head. He'd be quite an old-fashioned GP. I got on with him great, lovely man. But the difference was that this woman that I went to see was used to looking at women. And she basically got me to strip off. She said she had me standing in like all sorts of different poses. She was looking. When I think about the level of care I got that day, it was unbelievable. And that's what's changed the trajectory of me being here and not. Because she said to me, here's my phone number. Go around the corner like you. Go see this guy and ring me when you come out. Wow. And then I just went, oh, that's a bit strange. But I never really thought at that point.
You didn't even then. You didn't think. You just told me without telling me. You were still
just living. Maybe
willfully,
it was just maybe it was willful neglect or willful ignorance, blindness. Exactly. So around I went anyway. Had to wait to see this guy. He sent me for an ultrasound straight away, and in I went like that into the breast centre. Saw the name and went, ooh. And I was by myself because it was a routine pregnancy checkup. My husband would usually come to those kind of things, but I don't know why he didn't come that day. He was probably working on shift or something. And in I went, and the guy doing the ultrasound, really nice, sat down, did his thing, and then he actually asked me to move a few different directions. So he was taking all his pictures. I didn't get to look at the screen at that point. And then he came and he sat on the bed, and he took off his glasses. And he put his hand, so I'm lying on my side, big, huge bump, as you can imagine. All I was thinking was, I hope he's quick because the parking on the car is going to run out. And if I have to go out and it's going to get clamped. Again. And he put his hand on my knee and he said to me, who's here with you today? Jeez. And I went, who's here with you? And I was like, nobody. I drove in myself. And he said to me, oh. And I said to him, why? And he said, can I call somebody for you? And I was like, why do you need to call somebody?
I'd be getting angry now.
And I started like really firm, and I knew he had to send away. So he did a biopsy. He had the fine aspiration there and then. He did a really quick biopsy. But he said to me, I need to send off the results, but I think you should prepare for having your baby next week. Jesus. And I was like, what? Why? Still oblivious to the fact that what he was telling me was that I had cancer, but he didn't say those words. He had to wait until he had X, Y, and Z. He had all the results back. And that was a Friday afternoon. And I remember just walking out to the car and just bawling, literally bawling. And I sat in the car, must have sat in the car for an hour because I didn't move. My mum was ringing me. She was looking after the kids. Paul was ringing me to check and see how I'd got on. Obviously, everybody had realised I was missing for quite a while. And I remember just blurting out then going, I think I might have cancer. And my mum was like, don't be so stupid. What do you mean? You know? And then as soon as I got home, it kind of all started to sink in. But the deal was, so we went on the Friday, had the ultrasound. I was to go back on Wednesday for official results. So I got to bring somebody with me, unlike you. Paul came with me, in we went. And the consultant that I met was another lovely gent of a man. This man was sent from above, and the nurses that worked with him were the same. And he just started with, your cancer. Oh. And I heard nothing else. No. Nothing else.
Just white noise.
Completely. Yeah, completely. I just heard, your cancer. And I went, oh, fuck. And that was it. I could literally feel my body just wanting to melt away into the floor. And so thankfully Paul was there, and he was able to kind of relay afterwards what he had said to me. But that's one of the things that you asked in the beginning was, what would you advise somebody? And I would say never go for these appointments by yourself, because you will not remember what they tell you. No. If you're lucky enough to get somebody who's in tune with that, maybe they might write down for you, maybe they might advise you to bring somebody, but you should always try to have someone with you.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
What I know Robbie's story, and people can listen back if they want to. Not that I'm less interested in it now. You don't look like you've had cancer. Not saying you haven't had cancer.
I promise I did. I have a few scars.
I'm saying that as a framing of hope, with respect, to people that either know someone that's just had that meeting, or going into that meeting, have just felt something in the shower, feel a little bit off, and feel like they're not themselves. You're a little bit like the light at the end of the tunnel that I thought was a cave. You were probably heading into that going, I'm going to die. I'm really annoyed that I'm going to die because my child is really small and the other one's not born yet. And this isn't fair.
Absolutely.
Why me?